Hey everyone, it's Warriors NRL Fanatics here. Hope you're all doing well. And, of course, as fans, we are doing great, aren't we? We are in a very, very good position at the moment, coming into our second bye of the season. And who would have thought, who would have thought we'd be in this position, after last year, it was a disappointing last year at the club after the highs of 2023. And, look, I won't lie, I went into this season with, not high expectations. And, of course, as a fan, you always have high expectations every year. You want to be challenging for the premiership. You want to be in the top four. You want to be in that, in contention to be up, there with winning the premiership come October. But this season, man, you look at this season and the players we've lost. We lost Vanua Blake to the Seagulls. We lost Tohu Harris due to retirement. We lost Sean Johnson. We lost Jazz Tavanga. So we lost quite a few of our senior and most experienced players. But, and then, we made the signings that we did. We brought in Tana Boyd. We brought in Fisher Harris. Fisher Harris was the biggest signing of all, of course. And, we had a few players returning from last year as well, the likes of Barnett as well, who had a good season in 2024. But, look, going into this year, for me, I felt like this year was going to be a bit of a rebuilding sort of season for the Warriors. And, I don't want to say that, but, I was being really realistic from what I saw last year. So, the biggest question mark was how were the Warriors going to handle, not having those players, who've been around the club for, the past few years. So Webby had to rebuild, and McFadden, Andrew McFadden, the recruitment manager, and Cameron George had to do some stuff in the background to try and get this team, back to where, they want to be, and that's contending to be a premiership threat, a finals team. Back to what they were trying to do in 2023, which was, the highs of 2023, you thought, look, it was going to carry on to 2024, but that didn't turn out to be the case. But the pre-season for me, and I generally don't get overexcited about the pre-season, but it did show some very positive signs, some encouraging signs leading into this year. And then round one came around. Now, round one against the Raiders in Vegas, we were all excited as fans to see how this team was going to go. And, well, we came up against an ambush against the Raiders team where a lot of people were tipping them to be one of the, bottom four teams. There were people even tipping the Raiders to be wooden spooners. And they came out on top of us 30 points to 8. And the Warriors just, in that game were simply outplayed by a physically dominant Raiders forward pack. But coming out of that game, the talk was on the halves. There was a lot of critics, in particular in regards to Metcalf and Chanel Harris-Tavita as a halves combination. This was their first game as a combination in the NRL, in the Warriors, These two have never played much together as a halves combination. It was Luke Metcalf's first game in that halfback spot. And there were a lot of people saying, look, Tana Boyd and, Tamari Martin should be in the halves. There was people saying that Luke Metcalf should move back to 6 and Tamari Martin should be the 7 going forward. There was all sorts of debate in the Warriors world after that round one loss. And I sat back and, felt like that it wasn't all Metcalf and Harris-Tavita's fault. They didn't have great games, don't get me wrong. But when you don't have a foundation from your full pack, that is not going to help on the field. And it was simple as the Raiders full pack was just simply outclassed the Warriors. And the Warriors pack was just, not in the races in that game. But I will say the most standout player, coming out of that game was Aaron Clark. Now, Aaron Clark's, performance off the bench Now, I was really surprised that Webby didn't start him in that game against the Raiders in Vegas. And, because, you looked at what Aaron Clark did in the pre-season, it showed that he should be the starting 13, and then, Webby made the call that he did, and, it was, I think the one player that could hold their head up high was Aaron Clark. I thought he was our best player by far on the field. I think, look, everyone else didn't have their greatest games, but I think Aaron Clark was our best player on the field. And to talk about that, Aaron Clark coming from the Titans, an off-season signing. Now, I'll be completely honest, I was really much on the fence with the Aaron Clark signing. I think he was, doing a good job at the Titans. I thought he was solid. Didn't quite stand out, to be honest, but the performance he produced for the Titans were alright. They weren't too bad, but coming back to the club, coming back to the Warriors, obviously a club that he used to play for in his junior years. He left the club a couple of years ago, decided to go to Oz, play for the Titans, wanted more of an opportunity in first grade, and he decided, look, I want to come back home to New Zealand to play for the Warriors. The Warriors wanted him, and he decided to sign for us, and from there on, it was, look, I was a bit of a question mark whether he can come back and provide a bit of impact, and the first game he played very well. He played very well coming off that bench there, but then the Warriors, that lost 30 points to 8 against the Raiders was a disappointing performance from us, all things considered. How it, as fans, we all felt like this team was going to, come into round one all guns blazing, and that wasn't the case. But you've got to give credit to the Raiders because they came out there and they physically outplayed the Warriors. They dominated. The offload count was crazy in that game. The Raiders just second phase footy that really troubled the Warriors, in particular in that game. So, but moving on from that Vegas game onto the game where we had to come home, lick our wounds from that Vegas trip, and we took on the Manly Seagulls. Now, we know the Manly Seagulls, are always a team that the Warriors generally find very tough to beat. Whether it's at home or away, we don't have the greatest of records against them over the years. But we're back at Go Media Mount Smart Stadium, where we're looking to put that Raiders, result behind us, and we needed to bounce back. We had to get a win, and I know it was only round 2, but we really need to come out and show that Raiders game was just a blip. It was just a very poor performance, and we need to come out at home and get our first win of the season, and we did that. We bet the Raiders. We bet the Seagulls. Sorry, guys. We bet the Seagulls there in that game, and that was a 36 points to 16 result to the Warriors there, and it was a very good win because it was a result we needed. We didn't want to go 0-2 to start the season, and I felt it was a very good performance at home in general, and seeing us produce a very solid performance at home, against the Seagulls at Go Media Mount Smart Stadium. But then round 3, we were looking to back it up. Can we get back-to-back wins? And it was against another opposition who we haven't beaten in a very long time. Can you believe? We've not beaten this side, the Sydney Roosters. And look, the Sydney Roosters, I think, started the season quite poorly, to be quite honest, when you look at their results. But despite that, they still had a very quality side on paper. They had Mark Nikolawasi on the wing there. They had some threats on the field for the, although they aren't as threatening as they have been in the previous years, I still felt this was going to be a really tricky game. But it turned out to be the case with a 14 points to 6 result. A very low scoring game, and the Warriors come over the top over the Roosters in that run, in a tight one, 14 points to 6. And boy, it was a tough one, but we were able to get the result. And this game actually showed the Warriors' defence was on top, really so, because we talked about how last season our defence was Achilles' heel, and not being able to push for finals footy in 2024. So it was a good result there, 14 points to 6. And in our first test coming away from home, and it was against the Tigers. And some people might think tests against the Tigers, really? The Tigers are been struggling for a number of years. Absolutely have been, but going into this game, I felt Tigers, Jerome Luai up against the Warriors. We know he's had big games against the Warriors in the past when he played for Penrith. The Tigers at home as well. A couple of results so far this season. They were showing some improvement as well going into this. So I also felt this was going to be a tricky game. Also at Campbelltown Stadium. We know generally when the Warriors play the Tigers at Campbelltown or Leichhardt, we don't seem to be able to do very well there. So yeah, the scoreline finished 26 points to 24. Another tight one against the Tigers as well. And again, it shows that we were able to, get across the line in a tight game. Not pretty against the Tigers. Definitely wasn't the prettiest of games. But, we saw a great try from Leka Halasima as well. The coming of age of Leka Halasima, his first try in the NRL, and it was bloody awesome to see. How good was that try when he ran away to score that? It was bloody brilliant. But yeah, the Warriors managing to get the result there in 26 points to 24. And then we had our first bye of the season, round 5, and the next test, and it's the dreaded game we all get nervous about. It's the Melbourne Storm at Amy Park in Melbourne, coming off the bye. And yeah, this for me, obviously, huge test, of course, because this Storm side going into this year, I felt like, for me personally, we're going to be one of the favourites to win the 2025 NRL Premiership. I thought they were going to be one of the teams to finish as the top side in the minor Premiership race. And we know how our record against Melbourne Storm over the years has been very, very tough. It's been a real struggle, and especially in Melbourne. And of course, we've always played them on Anzac Day, but this is another real sign we play them, in Melbourne when it's a regular season game. So the Melbourne Storm completely play us off the paddock there, off the field, in terms of how clinical they were to start this game. You have to complete your sets. You have to, do the basics right against this Melbourne Storm side, because we know how good they are when they're on song. And that first half, I thought it was going to be a cricket score. I thought it was going to be 60. I thought it was going to be 50. I thought it was going to be a lot more than what it looked like. But 42 points to 14 was the final score. Now, the second half, we did a lot better. We showed some great fight in that second half. And, a good effort there in that second 40. But in the end, of course, Melbourne coming away with that win, 42 points to 14, was, a clinical performance from the Storm in the first half especially. But the second half, I think we felt like we showed a lot of bravery and effort to get some more points in that second half when it looked like the scoreline could have been a lot worse than what it looked. So, and then we went back home to Auckland, New Zealand at Go Media Mount Smart Stadium in round 7. And we took on the Brisbane Broncos. Now, this game in particular, just looking at it, was a 20 points to 18 result. In the lineup, in this game we had Tane Tuapiki playing fullback. We had Ed Cossey on the wing. We had Capewell in the centres with Leotau and Pompey on the wing. And then we had Harris Tavita and Luke Metcalf halves. So we had a very different looking side in that game for the one against the Bronx. And we came over the top of the Broncos in that game. In particular, it was a 20 points to 18 result to the Warriors. Another very close, tight match. We were able to get over the line in particular in this one. I felt like the Warriors themselves, up against a very good, talented Broncos side who were, a lot of talks around them going into this season about being back there contending for the top 4, top 8 team, because of the struggles they had last year. New coach Maguire, they had have a good roster, but we were able to get over and just edge it over the Broncos at home in that one. And then another game at home and round 8, and we were coming up against the Newcastle Knights. Now, this game was actually played in Christchurch on Anzac Day. another Anzac Day clash for the Warriors in New Zealand. And the big thing is, can the Warriors finally get a win on Anzac Day? We couldn't do it last year against the Gold Coast Titans at Go Media Mount Smart Stadium. We couldn't do it in the previous years because of playing Melbourne and Melbourne. But again, up against the Knights team who were struggling. It was a similar feeling to how I felt against the Titans. Last year on Anzac Day, we were expected to win. We were hot favourites. I think I was quite nervous about this game. I know the Knights were struggling. They were, not in a good position on the ladder. They couldn't score many points as well. So I always thought this was a danger game and a banana skin type game down there in Christchurch. And the good thing is we managed to, handle the occasion really well. And we got over the Knights here in the 26 points to 12 victory. And I thought it was a very good win for the Warriors down there at Christchurch. And it was so awesome to see us get over the line, in particular in this game. And we saw the return of Chance Nickel-Klugstad back at fullback in this game as well. I think Tane also had a very strong game. So, it was a lot of standouts in particular in this one over the Knights down there in Christchurch. And also a big shout out to the crowd as well. It was good to see a great amount of support for the Warriors down there in Christchurch. And I know RugbyLeague is got a strong supporters base down there in the Canterbury region. So yeah, big up to the Christchurch people for going out there and turning up and supporting the boys there. So after that Newcastle Knights game, our next trip was Magic Round in Brisbane. And boy, the excitement for me was always Magic Round. It is the highlight of the NRL calendar. It's right up there with the grand final, NRL finals, State of Origin. It's always a massive occasion, come together with the fans, in particular from all different teams, Warriors fans alike. Always a great atmosphere as well. So this game in particular, up against the Cowboys. Now the Cowboys themselves, man, I think going into this game, they were in some good form as well. They were starting to hit their peak after a bit of a slow start. Both teams were, in some good form. And again, another team which, is always a danger, the Cowboys. We know they're always a threat when, in attack especially. Obviously, their defence is something that, probably does let them down at times. But this is a game against their attacking side which, gave me a bit of nerves as well going into it. But we did, start this game particularly well, and we were pretty dominant for that first half. And I was there at Suncorp Stadium in Brisbane, and it was a complete dominance by the Warriors in that first 40. But then that second half was just stressful. It was just tough to watch as a fan because you can see the Warriors fans in the crowd. They were a bit nervous, they were a bit worried. They were a bit, look, this is going to be very tense stuff, and it was tense. And the Cowboys, man, they were coming home strongly. They really were. And 30 points to 26 was the final score. Very, very close, man. The Cowboys, they had a few tries disallowed. We were able to hang on and defend our line and get over the top in a tight, tense affair against the Cowboys, very talented Cowboys side. And we were able to get the win, 30 points to 26, man. Oh, man, look, just very proud of how the efforts we showed in that game, particularly our resilience on our defence to hang on and get that victory over the Cowboys side, who are coming home strongly against us there. So, yeah, it was a good result. And then the next game, round 10, saw us take on the Dragons down there in the Gong. We were able to come over the Dragons in a very low-scoring game. Again, another low-scoring game for the Warriors this season. 15 points to 14. And it was a field goal by Luke Metcalf. We were up, I think we were up one stage, we were leading this game. And then the Dragons managed to fight back. And then we got the field goal with, I think it was 9 minutes remaining. About 9 minutes remaining, and Metcalf decided to go early with the field goal. Big call for Metcalf to go for that field goal early with 9 minutes remaining, but it was a telling point in the end of the game, and we were able to come over the top of the Dragons in a another tight game, 15-14, and you got to say it was probably, in terms of our attack in that game, was not the prettiest. To be honest, in fairness, and yeah, we were able to get over the top in a very ugly sort of result for the Warriors, but being able to get that 2 points is always crucial and it's always important there. And the next game, our next game, and that is at Suncorp Stadium again. So our second game at Suncorp in Brisbane in round 11 against the Dolphins side, who actually were coming into some good form and starting to push their claims for potentially a top 8 spot. And I think leading into this game, their key players are really standing up. The likes of Katoa's, and your Farnworths, who are having strong performances. And the Warriors won this game 16-12 against the Dolphins down there at Suncorp Stadium in Brisbane. And we were able to get our second win at Suncorp Stadium this year in Brisbane. So it was, again, another big result against a very good, talented Dolphins lineup. And it was just good to see we were able to get that result in the end. And then round 12, we took on the Canberra Raiders. Now, this game was the origin effective game where the Warriors were missing the likes of Barnett to New South Wales selection, and also Fisher Harris being suspended for this game. So we had no Fisher Harris and no Barnett against the Raiders, and we're back at home at a sold out crowd on the Sunday in round 12. And we're up against the Raiders team full of confidence, looking to get another road win. And the Raiders, well, man, they were sitting high and flying with confidence. The only player they were missing was Hudson Young. And, going into this game, of course, the biggest thing is who's going to step up in the forward pack. Is the likes of Jackson Ford, Clark, and the like going to have a big game because they needed to. But the Raiders, unfortunately, the Raiders yet again do beat us in this game, but it's a much closer, tighter affair. The scoreline was finished 16-12 was the full-time score. And in particular, I felt like the most frustrating thing coming out of that game was probably our attack more so than our defence. Look, our defence was very good and very strong, but I felt like our attack just didn't really, threaten the Raiders in this game. But also in saying that the Raiders' defence was very good as well. They kept the Warriors out for so many times in this one. So, I think the only disappointment for me, look, the effort was great. I was very happy with the effort, but the attack just not really clicking very well in this particular contest. And I think the Raiders 4-pack did do a good job as well, and particularly the outside backs as well. So, 16 points to 10. And look, at the end of the day, I thought there were some positives coming out of that game, but there were also we also saw some stuff that we probably could have done a lot better in terms of maybe execution wise there. But anyways, that was our first loss in a very long time. We're coming into this game in some very good form. We hadn't lost the game in a while, but that was a first loss in a few games. It's been a while since we had one. And then we went over to Sydney in round 13 back at Accor Stadium. Accor taking on the South Sydney Rabbitohs, the South Sydney Rabbitohs team who were sitting inside that top 8 going into this game. And Wayne Bennett's side, starting to find a bit of form and finding a bit of confidence, and going up there. I thought this was going to be a tricky game, and it turned out to be the case. And it was a high-scoring game as well, and the Warriors in that second half, got out to a 13 points to 16 lead. The Rabbitohs fought back very well. In particular, they made a real game of it. Latrell Mitchell, man, he tried his absolute hardest to take this game away from the Warriors, and he almost did as well, and the Warriors got away with it in the end, 36 points to 30. A high-scoring game, and I thought it was very entertaining because both teams played. I think both teams put their hand up and say they played particularly well, but obviously the defence wasn't great from both sides in general as well, but 36 points to 30, man, high-scoring game, and the Warriors were able to come away with another win in Australia, another away win this season. And it's been the Warriors' strong point this year is winning on the road, and it's something the club hasn't done in a very long time, especially when you look at our record over the years when it comes to playing games in Australia. Getting that win, especially on the road, is always important, despite it being so tense. And all the Warriors games when we've won have been intense, to be fair. There, so yeah, 36-30 there. And then the most recent game, round 14. Who would have thought this, man? Look, we're in this game, coming into it against the Cronulla Sharks down there in Cronulla. You know, coming off the bye. We coming off the news of the heartbreak and gutting news of Mitchell Barnett being ruled out for the rest of the season due to that ACL injury, which was very unfortunate, very sad. All us Warriors fans were feeling down in the dumps despite that win against the Rabbitohs with the news of Barnett, and then we get the news come game day, and it was come game day really where the mail coming out that Wade Egan is going to be ruled out. So we just lost Barnett. We just lost Rocco Berry. Now we're losing Wade Egan, and Wade Egan's set to be ruled out for the game. And then the big news was Sam Healey. Sam Healey up against his former side in the Sharks, coming up against his old team. He comes into the starting lineup for Wade Egan. And the news only broke on the Saturday morning when Webby gave the thumbs up to Sam Healey that you're going to be playing against the Sharks and taking over Wade's spot due to Wade being out injured. So that was big news. That was massive news for Healey, and I was really excited for Healey. I was gutted for Wade. Hopefully it was nothing serious, and I was really gutted for Wade, but just to see Sam get his opportunity, because I feel like he's been absolutely killing it in New South Wales Cup, and when he had his opportunity last time he played first grade, I thought he played very well as well. So it was good to see him come into that starting lineup, get his real opportunity to play first grade up against his side that he up against his his dad's side in the Sharks, who used to be a former Sharks player. So and the way this game started, man, look, it was a really tight game, very tight. I think, we personally, I do felt like we dominated the first couple of minutes of that game. Obviously, we got off to a good start there. I think we were up 12-0 at one stage, and then the Sharks hit back themselves a couple of tries. Going to halftime was 12 points to 10. I believe we had a 2-point lead over the Sharks. Probably the scoreline may not have reflected, the start the Warriors had. In particular, I felt like we were completely on top throughout that first half, and then the Sharks. Well, the scoreline showed it was a tough, close first half, but didn't really quite feel like that, to be quite honest. But the second half, I felt like this is probably going to be one of those games where it's going to be exactly how we've been winning games this year. But in saying that, we absolutely dominated the Sharks in that second 40. We were able to get some very good attacking play. We saw Harris Tavita go over to score a try. We saw Lekahale Sema score a try. We were able to get well over the top of the Sharks in this contest. Non-contest in the second half, to be quite frank. We saw some strong performances from Chance Nickel-Klugstad at the back there, at fullback. Again, just another performance where he lays out the meters made. He made 242 plus meters. We saw, Chanel Harris-Tavita play. I feel like he played his best game, this season. And I feel like he's been playing some good footy anyways, but this was probably his best he's played for the Warriors this year. Metcalf having another strong performance as well at halfback, leading the team across the field. Fisher Harris as well, doing a great job. Probably his best game in Warriors colours this season too. Then we also saw Aaron Clark as well, man. Aaron Clark's just been absolutely brilliant. And another strong showing from him. Laban coming off the bench I thought was strong in particular. Then you had Vai Moanga, man. our youngsters really just stepping up to the plate there. So, and then, Healy, I just thought Healy had a very solid, solid game, in particular with the minutes he got. So, it was a real, look, I think it felt like it was our most complete performance, the most completed 80-minute performance of the season. We haven't been able to string two very good halves together. We've had one good first half, and in the second half we're hanging on by dear life, and grinding out due to our defence. But this is where we saw our defence and our attack actually both come together and click into gear. So 40 points to 10 was, look, a scoreline I didn't really expect going into that second half. I felt like it was going to be one of those games where it's going to be a 26-20 result or 24-20. That's how I felt the second half was going to go. I was confident we're going to get the win, but I didn't feel like it was going to be as big of a scoreline as what it looked. And look, this is based off what I've been seeing this year when we've won our games. It's based on not everything's been clicking into gear. It's been a lot, certain areas of our game which haven't been the greatest, but obviously we're relying on our defence to get us over the line, and this time we didn't have to. We relied on our attack as well to start clicking and humming, and then our defence was also there as well. So we got to remember this too in this game. We kept the Sharks scoreless in the second half. They didn't score a try. That just shows how how far we've come, to being a team that could really do some damage in the season. So 40 points to 10, man. I was so happy with this performance. This was a performance of a statement. Going down to Cronulla, there's people that still doubt this team. There's still people that are saying that the Warriors are lucky to be in this position. They're still fortunate to be sitting in that top four, and we're not. Our performances are showing we deserve to be where we are, where we're sitting at the moment. So, look, very happy with that result. Was very happy with that result, and it was just a good, complete performance by the whole side. I don't think anyone had a disappointing game, in particular in their performances. And look, I've got to say a big shout out to Harris DeVita once again. Big shout out to him, because I know going into this off-season there was a lot of question marks around it. Who should be the 5'8"? Who should be the halfback? Who's going to partner in the halves together? And there's a lot of doubt about Chanel Harris DeVita. Some people saying, Tamari Martin should be in there over Harris DeVita. Tanner Boyd should be in there. And I think Harris DeVita's performances have actually been flying under the radar. A lot's been said about Metcalf. Metcalf has been great, but I think Harris DeVita's performances have been so far so good, very solid. Obviously it's not brilliant, outstanding, but he's getting the job done. He's getting the work done, and I think this was probably one of those games where we saw why Harris DeVita deserves to be where he is in the side at the moment, why he's deserving to partner with Metcalf in that halves position. So, big up to Luke Metcalf, big shout out, big up to Chanel Harris DeVita and Luke Metcalf as a combination as well. I feel like this combination is only scratching the surface. I feel like it's only going to get better, it's only going to improve, and when it all clicks into gear, I think look out, these two are going to really give this side that direction each week, in order to get more points on the scoreboard, more results, and I think they'll only get better. Look, it's not a done deal in terms of how the combination being brilliant. It's still going to click, it's still going to get better. But huge shout out to Metcalf and Harris DeVita in this game. I thought they were brilliant and really controlled this game in the second half. Fisher Harris as well, man. Look, Fisher Harris kept AFB quiet. AFB absolutely had a very, very limited, impactful game. This was probably the most limited, impactful game we've seen of Fanua Blake this season. So it was good to see. Good to see our four-pack muscle up against the likes of your Fanua Blakes and that. And, we kept the Sharks relatively quiet. Their key players, the Hineses and the Trindles. I was a bit worried about the outside backs as well. And we did very well in that particular area to not give them that sort of, go forward, in particular on the field. So, The Sharks game was great. It was a good result. Look, what more can I say about it? It was a complete performance, our best performance of the season, and hopefully we can have a few more of those performances to come over, the next couple of weeks, because I think at the moment, where we're sitting on the ladder at the moment, let's have a look. So we're currently sitting in third spot on 22 points. So we're on the same points as the Bulldogs and the Raiders, sitting third. 13. So far we've got 10 wins, 3 losses, and we've only had one bye. We've had one bye, so we're going to have 2 byes this week. So plus the 2 points from the bye we're going to be sitting in a very good position. We are at the moment, but we will be sitting in that top 4 for another week. And I feel like over the next couple of weeks, if we can, I feel like if we can win our next few games, I think we're going to go a long way to cementing our spot in that top 4. We're going to go a long way to keeping ourselves in that all-important top 4 spot, which you need to be finishing come the back end of the season, because you want to have that double life in the finals. You want to really have that second chance. But in saying that, also, I feel like if we can, wrap that up, we can push for higher. We can definitely push for higher. We can push for the top 2 spot. And I think the top 2 is going to be really important for the Warriors as well, because, only a couple of years ago when we made the finals in 2023, we had to go to Penrith and play Penrith in week 1. And then, obviously, we had to, go to Brisbane in week 3 to take on the Broncos in the prelim at Suncorp Stadium. So I do feel like the Warriors need to, obviously finish top 4 first, guarantee that top 4 spot, but then push for that top 2 spot, and challenge the likes of your Bulldogs and your Raiders for finishing first or second. Now, I wouldn't mind if we finish second. I don't think we have to finish first. It'd be nice to finish first, don't get me wrong, but I wouldn't mind finishing in that second spot as well. So I think top 2 is crucial for the Warriors. An opportunity to get 2 home finals, especially a home prelim final at potentially Go Media Mount Smith Stadium in Auckland, or a home final in week 1 of the finals at Go Media Mount Smith Stadium. So I think it's going to be crucial for the Warriors' chances of, what they can do in this competition as a whole. I think that's the way I look at it from my point of view. So. Yeah, look, 10 wins, 3 losses. We've only had 1 bye so far. We're going into our second bye. Just looking at our points differential, it's not too bad at the moment as well there. We're sitting in, where are we? What are we? 291 points for, and then you got our against is 256. And we have a plus differential of 35. So we've absolutely, upped our for and against after being at plus 5 not long ago. So it's good to see there with that win. We're currently 4 wins, 4 and 1 at the moment in terms of form guide right now there. So that's our form guide at the moment. So other stats as well, just looking at our season stats so far. So we got 82% completion rate. We're completing very high. Tackle efficiency 88.5%, average points scored 22, average points conceded 19. Yep, we're right up there in terms of our defence at the moment. Average play with ball speed 3.52 seconds as well. And at the moment, just looking at our top performers, Wade Egan actually leads the way with 538 tackles for the Warriors this season. And of course, Luke Metcalf leading the way for the Warriors with points. Our top point scorer as well this season so far at 113. And of course, Luke Metcalf is leading the way in tries as well with 8 tries this season, which is a remarkable feat for a half in particular, which is really awesome to see. And Luke Metcalf sitting in 40 goals at the moment. So that's our area there. But yeah, I think pretty much that sums up the terms of the season, the stats for the Warriors so far this season. I just want to have a look at some of the player stats as well for the season so far, and have a look at this. First, we'll have a look at Aaron Clark. Now, Aaron Clark, just looking at his stats. So he has this year. Let's look at it here. So 13 appearances, So 13 appearances for the Warriors so far this season. His try assist, he's got 1 try assist, 2 try involvements, line break assist 2, line break involvements 1, 32 tackle breaks and 191 hit-ups with post-contact meters of 774.6. And his play the ball speed is at 3.34, passes 146, offloads 18, dummy passes 26, tackles 450 for Aaron Clark there, with missed tackles 23, tackle efficiency 93.22%, and he has also had run meters 2,046, line engage runs 27, and dummy half run meters 5, hit up meters 1,857, with kick return meters at 20 there. So those are the stats for Aaron Clark leading into this season so far. And boy, he's showing why he should be, I think, for me, one of the best locks in the game, currently on form right now. Another player I want to look at as well, in particular, I want to look at Chance Nickel-Klugstad. Now, just reading his stats for the season so far, he's had 2 try assists, 1 try involvement, 2 line break assists, 4 line breaks, 1 line break infringements, 54 tackle breaks, 26 hit-ups, post-contact meters 758.9, play the ball speed 3.49, and then you look at offloads. He's had 6 offloads to 10 dummy passes, tackles 89, 11 missed tackles, 87.4% tackle efficiency. Just shows that Chance Nickel-Klugstad's the fence, man. And a lot's been talked about going into the off-season about Chance Nickel-Klugstad, and I'll put my hand up and say I wasn't too sure where he can find that form again, but I know a lot of people wanted him out of that fullback spot, and I probably wasn't one of them, despite me questioning, whether he's going to be able to get his best form again. And he's definitely proven a lot of people wrong, and the stats there read pretty well in terms of tackle efficiency. We know how good of a defender he can be, look, 1-on-1 steals, he's had 1-on-1 tackles 10, and he's forced turnovers 6, all runs 259, 2,499 running meters, 6 line engage runs, 57 dummy half run meters, hit up run meters. You got 277 with 706 kick return meters. Man, he is so good coming into those important areas of the game in terms of your meters from those kicks, especially. And kicks diffused 28, kicks not diffused 12. And kick meters 12 as well to Chance Nickel-Klugstad. So that's another standout performance so far this season from Chance Nickel-Klugstad as well. And also I want to have a look at the forwards as well. Now, just reading the forward pack, and Mitchell Barnett is one of them. We'll look at Mitchell Barnett, and I know Mitchell Barnett's going to be gone for the season, but this is Barnett's stats. And of course, unfortunately, he is not going to be playing for the rest of the year, which is a real shame. But we look. I feel like we have got the next man up mentality. But this is Barnett's stats in 2025. So 15 tackle breaks, 132 hit ups, post contact meters 578.4, play the ball speed 3.25, and he had, just in terms of his stats this season, 2 offloads, 7 dummy passes, 376 tackles, 19 missed tackles, tackle efficiency 91.64%, 1-on-1 tackles 8, forced turnovers 1, all runs 154, running meters 1,451, line engage runs 5, and he has hit up run meters of 1,252 with a kick return meters of 176 there. So that is Mitchell Barnett's stats. But yeah, look at the also another player I want to look at in terms of stats is Luke Metcalf. So I'll just bear with me. Give me a second, guys. So Luke Metcalf, it's listed he's 5'8", but of course he's played halfback. So 13 appearances. He's had 8 tries, 113 points so far this season. We've had 40 goals, conversions 32. He's had 1 field goal, 2-point field goals. He's had attempt of 1. Goal conversion rate is 57%. So, of course, a lot of talks around his goal kicking and how it needs to improve. And it's not the best, of course, but, I'm sure you can step that up, that sort of area. Try assists, man. 7 try assists for Luke Metcalf this season. Try involves 5 try involvements there. To the line break assist of 5. Tackle breaks 8. Oh, sorry, not tackle breaks. Line breaks. Sorry, guys. My apologies. Line breaks 8. And line break infringements 5. And then you've got tackle breaks, 23 tackle breaks. That's he's breaking the line so much there. Head ups for 2. Post contact meters 153.7. And play the ball speed 3.66. Then you have the offloads 2, dummy passes 50, tackles made 193, to missed tackles 26, tackle efficiency of an 84.18%. And then you've got one-on-one tackles 10, forced turnovers 6. Run meters, he's running for 1,012 running meters and all runs 102. Line engaged runs 37. Dummy half run meters 23. And then kick return meters 5. Kicking meters, he is kicked for 5,008.8. Jeez, that's a lot of meters there. And he has also, I think that's it. That's pretty much it for stats here, guys. So that's Luke Metcalf's stats. And I'll probably read one more play, guys, and we'll have a look at the rest of the draw and what rating I give at this point of the season. So one more play we'll have a look at here. And if you guys want to know some of the players' stats, you can always go to the Warriors app and find it there as well. So the last player I really want to have a look at, and look, there's been a lot of standouts, to be honest, and I don't want to go through, I don't want to be here, I don't want to go through too much because the video will be too long, but look, I feel like there's one more player I particularly want to point out, and that's Leka Haliasima. How good has Leka Haliasima been? Man, he has just been so good for us this season. So where is he? Leka Haliasima. There he is, Leka. Right, so Leka Haliasima, right, he's made 13 appearances. He's had 1 try involvement, 3 line breaks. So 1 line break involvement, 30 tackle breaks. Read that wrong, apologies. 30 tackle breaks, 118 hit ups, 482 post contact meters. Play the ball speed, average speed is 3.67. He's had 4 passes, 133 recipients, offload 6, dummy passes 4, tackles 303, 19 missed tackles, which is so impressive for the age that he is. He is defended very well, actually. Only 19 missed tackles isn't too bad there. 92.38% efficiency for tackles. 1-on-1 tackles 7 and forced turnovers 4. All runs 120. 1,231 all running meters for the man himself, Leka Haliasima. Hit up run meters 1,213, and he's only missed 1 kick. So 1 kick not defused there for Leka Haliasima. So there we have it. Those are some of the stats from the players that have really stood out this season. And look, there's been plenty of players that have produced some good performances at this midpoint of the year. I think the only player I've probably been a bit disappointed with, and I know he's come off an injury, it's been Dallin, DWZ there. But look, in saying that, you can't blame Dallin because, when he's come back, I know a lot has been said about his defence and that, and I do agree, but, look, Tane had the similar problems in defence when he was playing for us, so it's not all on Dallin, guys, as well. So we can't be too critical of Dallin, and even when Dallon's come back, he's still been able to play a big part of it. A few of our wins as well. He's got a couple of tries, which have been really pivotal to the scoreboard as well. So I think we'll see Dallon, only continue to get improve. He needs a bit more match fitness. And I was the one to say he probably should have been playing New South Wales Cup before being rushed back into the side. So yeah, you can't doubt Dallon's commitment to the side, but obviously, look, I think the only probably downside has been Dallon's since he's been back. His performance haven't been great, but he's still been able to get a few tries on the scoreboard when it matters. So I'm sure he'll comes with match fitness. He'll only get better there, but. A big shout out to a lot of these standout players in particular, Aaron Clark's, Luke Metcalf's, Chance Nickel-Klokstad's. I think if you're looking for players at the moment who are currently in contention to win the Warriors Player of the Year, Simon Mannering medalists, I think it's got to be between the likes of Aaron Clark, Chance Nickel-Klokstad, Luke Metcalf. I think it's in between those players in particular. I think it could be really close, and whoever wins it from those guys, I'll be very happy. I'll be happy with either one of them winning it, to be honest. So it's difficult to say who should deserve to win that Warriors Player of the Year, because either of those players deserve to win it. I feel like, in my opinion, at the moment, based on form, and also Wade Egan's also having a very good season as well. He's playing very strongly as well. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up on how I've looked at the players and who stood out. So let's look at the draw. So these next couple of weeks, man. Okay, so we got Penrith coming up, round 16. Now Penrith Panthers. Now there's a lot of talks about them, going to be resting their players due to State of Origin being played in Perth and the turnaround and how short it is. But look, I think Penrith will probably go into this game, look, I feel like they will go into this game with some players rested. But I will say this, I do feel like they will probably bring some players over to New Zealand as well. I know Ivan's already basically confirmed it, I think, in a press conference, saying that he's not going to bring everyone over. But in saying that, Penrith, this is a game where they've got to look to, get a win as well. They're not in a position where, they're sitting comfortable, at the moment. They've got to win their games to push for top 8. So, it's going to be interesting to see what sort of lineup they name for this game against the Warriors at Go Media Matsman Stadium. Obviously travelling to Auckland as well, so it's a bit of a trip for them. But yeah, look, again, it's a game at home, which I do feel like we can win. And then, we've got the Broncos at Suncorp Stadium in Brisbane. It's going to be another massive game, that one, particularly with the Broncos, themselves looking to get some winning form going, try and get themselves in that position of the top 8. The Warriors looking to continue on their record away from home, looking to stay undefeated at Suncorp Stadium, and again, a game which will be massive in terms of the season, where the Warriors look to finish at the back end of the year. And it's a game I'm looking forward to going to, because it's always awesome Warriors-Broncos games. And I'll be there actually at the game, and I'll be doing a vlog for that one. So yeah, stay tuned for that one there. But Broncos-Warriors, man, it's going to be a really good contest. I know Broncos haven't been in great form lately, and their performances haven't been great, but still, it's a quality Broncos side. You've got the team to do it. And, they're at home as well. So it's going to be a tricky game. It's going to be a really tricky game, despite, what their performances in seasons and this season have shown. And then round 18, we've got our final bye of the season. So we got our last bye of the year. Finally get that out of the way. No more byes after that. And then we've got a big back end of the season with the Tigers at home, round 19, on Sunday, the 13th of July, and then we got the Knights away in Newcastle, the Titans at home in round 21. That will be on the Sunday, the 26th of July, and then we follow it on with the Dolphins at home, and then we got the Bulldogs. That will be a massive game, and another huge test for the Warriors, and it's another top 8 side. Now, look, they're generally the only top 8 side we're going to play over the back end of the season. So it's not a really bad run home when you think of it. But in saying that, we know how this competition has been this season. It's been so unpredictable. You've seen teams that aren't expected to win end up winning. So we're going to be coming up against it, after the Bulldogs game. It's going to be a tricky one up there in Sydney at Accor Stadium. This potentially could be a game where it could decide whether the Warriors finish inside that top 2. Come the back end of the year. It could be a really crucial game for the Warriors, and I think it will be, especially with the likes of your Raiders. We'll be challenging for that top 2 spot, and the Bulldogs. These are the 2 teams we'll be challenging for that top 2 finish. And then, of course, we got the Dragons at home again. So, we played the Dragons for the second time this season. Then we got the Titans on the Gold Coast. I'll be attending that game. I'll be there at Seabus Stadium in round 25 on the Saturday, the 23rd of August. Then we got the Parramatta Eels at home. Then we wrap it up with our final game of the season against the Manly Seagulls away from home it's actually on the Friday as well. So, look, overall, I think we'll look at that draw and we'll say we can at least get I'll probably say 3, 4, 5, maybe 5 or 6 wins out of those games. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I do feel like they are quite winnable, a lot of those games. The Bulldogs game is probably the biggest one of all. It's the biggest test of all. If we can beat the Bulldogs away from home, man, that would be a massive, massive coup for us, massive result, and it'd be a big confidence booster come, the finals, if we can get a win over them, especially. So, all I say is if we can get 3-4 wins over the next couple of weeks, I think that's it. Top 8 locked in. About locking up that top 4, and then we can aim for that top 2 spot. That all-important top 2 spot, I think, for me, is going to be really important. And I know the Warriors' record away from home isn't too bad this year, but still in saying that, two finals games played at home at Go Media Mount Smart Stadium is going to be a good advantage to have in the finals series. So, yeah, look, in terms of what I rate the season, midpoint of the year, I'm going to give us a B. I feel like it's a B. It's exceeded expectations for me. Whatever happens from here on, man, I feel like this team is only going to go, is only on the up. The positives are there. I really like how, our junior development players, are really, really starting to, get real, the real improvements, that the likes of your Leka Haliasimas, your Vamawangas, your Labans, I feel like they're going to be the future of the club for the next couple of years. And you look at what our New South Wales Cup side are doing, and a big shout out to them. They've only lost 1 game this season. I think they're sitting in 12 wins, 1 loss, or 13 wins and 1 loss from my memory there, but they're in a good position as well on the New South Wales Cup ladder. So it's good to see that the players in the reserve grade side are really transferring their performances. And look, if players in the first grade side don't perform, they know they've got to step up because they've got the reserve grade players who are playing very well as well in the New South Wales Cup. So there's really exciting times at the club at the moment, and I feel like this season's on track to be a very good one for the Warriors. I feel like any finish in that top 4 is going to be massive in that top 2 spot, and I think come finals time we could be a real threat for this 2025 premiership. But yeah, can the Warriors win the 2025 premiership? Are the Warriors contenders for the season? Absolutely they are. There's no doubt about it. Doesn't matter what people say. People might say we got a soft draw. People might say we're lucky to be in the top 4 right now. But we deserve to be there, guys. Just Warriors fans, I'd say drink, look, don't get too excited, but, look, at least, feel like, get real high about this team. You've got to get real high about it, but let's not get carried away. But let's not get cocky, but let's still show some excitement and belief in the side, because, if you're sitting in the top 4, you can't not get excited. You can't not get excited about the potential of what this team can do in the 2025 season. But, guys, let me know what your thoughts are on the season so far. What rating do you give the Warriors in terms of A, B, C, D? D being the lowest, A being the highest, B being, quite high as well. Let me know what you rate this season. It is at this midpoint of the season, but it's been, I think it's been a really good. It's been a real good marker of how this season for me has been as a whole. I feel like it's been a real pass mark for me in terms of, the potential that we've been showing. In terms of Webby getting the confidence out of the boys as well. And you can see how much of a boost this side has been redone. But guys, like this video, click that thumbs up on the video, click that like button, click that share button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and I'll see you guys all in the next one.